wherever you are in the world, deepest. Behind every great song, there's an even greater story. I like to say what's up to everybody listening to us on Amazon, Spotify, Spreaker, Geo7, iHeartRadio, and we're now on YouTube. So go check us out on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another great guest here. And before I bring him on, I want to say this is going to remind you, or hearing the story reminds me of the common lyric, couldn't go through it without soul music. And then also one of my guests, Alicia Elliott, actor and singer, said that music is medicine. So we have a speaker that's also a mentor and a speaker, hip hop head. And we're here just to get the story behind wonderful things that he's doing, helping people out and being a life coach. So ladies and gentlemen, we have Chase Thayer here on Deeper the Music. How you doing?
And I'm doing good. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, not a problem, man. So one thing I wanted to talk about first initially was, so you are a hip hop head, right? A fellow creative. And this is an interesting thing, what I read in your bio. So you're a creative MC, but you kept your creative side private, which is very interesting, because when people think about hip hop, they think about loud, braggadocious, So, man, how did you get into? Well, how did you become an MC and get into music? Like, what lured you into hip hop music?
So it starts like really before I even remember, and I know just from my parents telling me, right? So I'm a diehard Michael Jackson fan. Was like my first favorite musician, listen to music. I had like a VHS tape of every music video he had back in the day. There was like a tape that came out. It was all Michael Jackson's music videos. And I would just sit and watch this, I guess, all the time when I was like 1 year old, 2 years old, back in, 83, 84. I had a cardboard cutout in front of the TV, and I would like break dance and just like mimic and copy Michael Jackson, learn how to moonwalk. And like, I just loved the music and the way it made me feel. And that's just always been the case. I remember recording on cassette tape off the radio, like Crisscross and like, House of Pain and LL Cool J, and just, all those old rap songs on the radio back when that's how we listened to music, a cassette tape. And then CDs came out, and then we were able to start burning them and, get music that way. But I've just always loved hip hop, R&B, rap, just the beats. I don't know. I love what you said, your fellow guest, the actress and songwriter, said music is medicine. I agree completely. Like, music can take you to a place and a memory just like that. It can change your mood just like that. It can set the tone in just a second. It's like music is, it makes sense. Like, I believe we are, energy and vibration. Like, everything is that. And it makes sense. Music creates energy and vibration. And I love it. And so growing up, and it's funny, I was telling you before we got on, I was raised in Utah. And so I grew up in a Mormon, strong religious family. And so a lot of my music choices were not acceptable. And so I had to hide that. And that's probably a lot of like the hiding the ability of being able to like freestyle. And I have a lot of blocks that I've learned about, and I'm still working through at 43 now. But yeah, man, I started freestyling like when I was probably, I don't know, like when I found out what it was, like in middle school, with some buddies, and kids were doing it and older friends were doing it. And so, just started doing it and copying. And back then it was, like you would mix a lot of like the artist's words into your lyrics, and you're, kind of like learning how to put flow together. And then like, I remember when 8 Mile came out, in Eminem, when Eminem came out, and then the movie came out, and it was like, oh man, like just loved everything about that, and the battle scene and rap battles, and just coming off the top of the head and being witty. And that's like what we did growing up. Like, we'd drive around in the car and turn on music and go around the car, and everybody would rap, and we'd freestyle, and it was just fun passing the time. And that's kind of what we did to hang out. That, and I played sports. Was a big sports guy. Played, all the sports until high school, and then I focused on baseball was my thing, and played that into college. And then I messed that up as part of my story is, and how music goes hand in hand in that is like all the times I'd get in trouble, like I always had music. If I was grounded or like I couldn't be with my friends, or I always had music to listen to and be able to escape. And writing was never really my thing. I struggled in school, like my ADD and like sitting down and focusing, but like turn on a beat and just start talking in rhyme form. Like, I don't know, it's just like something that I've been able to do. and I love doing in college after like in the college years. Like I said, the movie 8 Mile came out, and so like everybody was rap battling. Like when I played baseball in college at the baseball house every Friday night and Saturday night was like the rap battle. Like the basketball guys would be there, football, like everybody would come. There'd be hundreds of people, and we just have rap battles every weekend. And it was just a blast. I did some competitions and stuff. It did well. And then I met my now ex-wife at the time. That's when I stopped. And so that's kind of when I just put that away and never really did again until my first child was born. And I would like, instead of like singing nursery rhymes, I would just like freestyle stuff to my baby when I'd like rock her to sleep and do that with all. I have 3 kids. I did it with all of them. I do it with them in the car and playing around and nighttime, bedtime, and they all love music. Music's a part of their life big time. My oldest plays guitar, drums, taught herself how to play piano. She's starting to write songs too now, which is really cool. And but yeah, I just hid that part of me. Like my parents didn't know I did that. And a lot of it probably was because when I was doing it back then, I was young. I was angry. I lost my youngest sibling to an accident. He drowned when I was 17. He was 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really propelled my addiction. Addiction is a part of my story. At 15 years old, the doctor prescribed me painkillers for an ankle injury. I tore a bunch of ligaments in my ankle, and man, that was like the answer. Like I was smoking pot and drinking with my friends somewhat, but I had to be real careful because my dad was so intense and strict. It was hard to get away with that stuff. But as I got older, I just stopped caring as much. Grades started to suffer. But the big turn was when that doctor wrote me that prescription and I started taking those painkillers. Man, it was bad news bears. Like that took over my life. And for the next 10 years, it fueled a very heavy opiate addiction, which led to losing my scholarships, losing baseball, my identity, who I was as a person was wrapped up in, this athlete, and like that was it. And so when that went away, I didn't know who I was, man. I was 19 years old. Like, now what? I got my whole life
Yeah.
ahead of me and I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I don't know how to do school. I'm not good at school. And if I'm not playing baseball, I have no purpose to go to school. And so I started running, doing some illegal activities for a while, like selling drugs, and not like a drug dealer. I was just like a middleman to fuel my habit. And I did that for like 6 years. And thank God, definitely God was looking out for me big time. I never got any felonies or anything crazy, but I got arrested a lot of dumb
Mm.
stuff where God just kept like, I swear, just like putting me in timeout and like just looking
Yeah.
out for me until I could pull, kind of wake myself up. And so that was like at 24, almost 25 years old. I had been to like 4 rehabs, been in and out of jail like 12, 13 times, something like that. Never any long stints. It was usually, a couple days here and there. I did do like a few months one time, and that was awful, like, but I'm not sitting here to be like I was some hardened thug criminal, but man, I wanted to be, like I didn't know who I
Yeah.
was. I was just lost. And so a lot of the music I was listening to was definitely darker, more like gangster rap music, and that's like the lifestyle I wanted to live. Not really, but I thought I did, because it was like a big case of like self-sabotage, really. Like once I lost baseball, it was like, I had people like literally being like, man, you should pursue like music. Like you're really good at like, cause I would literally come into these rap battles with like all these guys and I would win like all the time. And like, I'm not just saying that, like, it was like, I don't know. It's like Will Ferrell in Old School. Like I just start going and like black out and like, I don't even remember what I say, but like it works and people are cheering and loving it. And, and it was just, I love doing it, but I was like, I can't do that. Like my parents would disown me. Like there's just like, there was no way I could ever do it, and never, I could never pursue anything like that. Um, so I ended up getting sober, at a place in California. So I moved to LA in June of 2007 and went to this place I was there for about 13 months, and I got a job, started working, and started doing some like underground battles and stuff, which was really cool. I started running around with this dude who's huge on YouTube. He rest in peace. He passed away with the addiction. It's awful, but he was Cadillac Ron. Shout out to him, man. That dude was a serious battle rapper, and he kind of took me under his wing and started taking me to some cool shows and stuff around LA. And I really thought I was going to maybe take off and do that. And then I met my now ex-wife and completely just shifted gears. And I actually started working at the place I went through where I got sober. And so I worked there for about 5 years. And then that really kind of was my college education in a sense, where I learned about marketing and admissions, how to do interventions and working with clients hands on. And so I did that for that company for 5 years. And then I started working for other national organizations doing business development marketing, basically, getting clients into their programs, which was awesome. And I loved it. But for the first half of my career, I worked for about four different places, from adolescent to adult, long-term care to residential treatment. And then about 10 years ago, me and a buddy of mine and his wife started a company doing just like coaching, mentoring, interventions, more crisis work and hands-on work with the families and kind of building treatment plans for them, because in those crisis moments, those families, they don't know what they're doing, and my parents didn't know what they were doing. They just, the internet had just come out. And so it was like you Googled, what do I do, and all these places
Yeah.
pop up and people can pay a lot of money and make a website look amazing and make a program look incredible. And the program can be trash, and
Yeah.
really, really
Yeah.
bad and more harmful than actually good. And there's a lot of those out there, unfortunately. And so over like my first 10 years, I traveled a lot and toured a lot of facilities and programs and built a lot of relationships to where I had really good connections around the country, that if I got a phone call for a family struggling with their son, daughter, husband, wife, whatever, I could put together a plan with a therapist. We could handle an intervention. We can get them into a treatment program, a detox, and like move really quick. And so we ended up kind of creating a company that just became like a concierge service for families. And now that's kind of blown up, and we weren't the first ones to do it, but we were one of the first ones to like start doing that specific kind of work. And now it's blown up and lots of people are doing it. And it's honestly, I'm glad, because this in the world I work in, working with people's lives, we're not selling cars or houses or, whatever. And that's all good stuff. But like in this industry, it's like, these are people's lives. And sometimes people forget that, and dollar signs get in the way, greed gets in the way. And I kind of feel like people like myself, there's a lot of people like me who care and want this to be helpful for people. But our industry has like a less than 10% success rate when it comes to like rehabilitation. That's awful, like that's really bad. But it's still one of the most thriving industries in the world. And why is that? Because of the revolving door. Like insurance companies, the medical field, and I'm kind of taking a stab at the big pharma and stuff right now, because it's true. They don't want people to get better because money keeps pouring in,
They treat the symptom and not the overall patient. But I wanted to circle back to a few things, because you said quite a few things that stood out in my mind. For one, the universal language of music. One thing that I was impressed about, because I'm a huge Michael Jackson fan, I'm looking forward to the biopic with his nephew playing him. Michael Jackson was also a big thing for me. Like, I was 5 years old when he did the moonwalk.
Yeah.
That was a moment like, hey, this is what I want to do. I want to entertain. And then like even with Celine Dion, she learned, one of the reasons why she learned English was because of Michael Jackson. And another thing that I thought was very unique in your situation, the why is because of your religion and your background, but also impressive that hip hop and music got into that community, right? You found it in that community. So it speaks to the universal language of music. And then also, I always say, turn your test into a testimony. I'm the type of person, you could preach all day.
I love that.
But I'm looking at how are you living? And if you're not living the word, if you're sinning Monday through Friday, I'm not, listening. If you're bad with your money, I'm not going to take financial advice from you. So I could see how you've turned your test into a testimony, which is very impressive. I wanted to, and then also like music. So I'm a Navy vet, wartime vet. 9/11 happened. I was out supporting Operation Enduring Freedom in December
Thank you for your
of
service.
2001. No problem. Thank you. And one thing, we're out to sea, but we love music. Like I remember one time we were out to sea for a long time, and we're sitting here analyzing Biggie's lyrics. Like the one thing where he talked out with a cat named Diablo and milked out Pablo and milked out Diablos. We're analyzing lyrics and we're out to sea, in the war. But man, I appreciate everything you do. So how how could I word this? So music has always been there for you. And I always feel like your calling will always be there no matter what you do. You were into sports, but that went away. You had to pivot. Naturally, your creativity came back. How was that? Like, how did you overcome that challenge of like, sports is not going to be for me. Now, what am I going to do? Because you said that was your identity.
Hmm.
What helped you find yourself, like get back on track?
Man. So really it was doing that really, really difficult thing, which was looking inward, looking in the mirror and getting right with myself. I had ran from a lot of problems. I ran from everything. And, I was living in just fear, all the time, like constant fight or flight. And, so with that identity lost and just spiraling out of control, fight or flight, it was just a perfect storm. Like I really was like on a sabotage suicide mission. I just didn't have the courage to end my life. I mean, literally the day that I picked up the phone and called my mom and said like, all right, like I'll go get help, which was the first time I actually asked for help. All the other times I got in trouble, I had to got to get out of jail, whatever, go to rehab to not, it was never my decision. This was the first time it was like, okay. And it was really like I was sitting and it wasn't like getting arrested. It wasn't, facing something crazy. It was like I was by myself. I had just met with my dealer and I had enough drugs in my pocket to take out a few people. And my plan was I'm going to sit here and just do all of it until I don't wake up. And that scared the shit out of me. When I said that in my head, I'd never like said it like that. I'd been like, I don't want to live or like, oh, throwing like an adult tantrum, like out of frustration when I was younger. But this was different. This was like, whoa, like it scared me. And I literally picked the phone up and called my mom and said like, all right, like I need help. And, I'd like to say I went immediately. It was like, I need a couple days, like what did I have? I had nothing to do, like I didn't need a couple days. Like I could have left that moment, but I still wanted to like, get right. And so, I ended up going, I did that, spent the next year, like really like redoing and relearning a lot of like basic things, like getting up in the morning and making my bed and making sure my clothes are put away and my house is in order. And that's what this place was. It was like life skills and, clean house, clean car, clean clothes, your life will follow in order. And so it was like, I took this time for me. And then after that first year of not any using any drugs, no, not even smoking pot, no alcohol, nothing, like complete abstinence, my life had changed dramatically in a year. Not like financially speaking or anything like that. It was just like I was happy. I had like actual happiness and peace. Like I remember the first time I laughed around like a couple like 60 days sober in the house and like we're sitting outside with the guys and like someone said something funny and I like genuinely laughed and was like, I haven't like felt that happiness in like years, like literally. And it was like just these little moments that were like really, really important and like they're so small, like that I take for granted a lot of the time. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I was gonna ask, like, so what was the click that this made you decide, like, look, I want to give service, like, I want to help people to ensure that they don't end up where I'm at, and I want to help and mentor. Because obviously, you got the on the job training through life. What was that transition or that click? Like, I want to give service and help people.
yeah. So it was about right around like 9 months of my of sobriety. I was in the house and one of the managers and like the owner's right hand man had like taken me under his wing and would like take me like, out to eat and stuff occasionally. And he was definitely grooming me. He knew that he would like to have me work at the house before I knew I wanted to do that. And so like when I started to really buy into like my recovery, which was like, a couple months in, like I knew this is what I needed to do. I got a job. I started working. I started paying off my debts. I mean, my credit score was like, it's just like the worst it could probably be. And, it was like just started chipping away little things one by one, and I got like a really good job selling women's shoes at Bloomingdale's in LA in the Beverly Hills area. So like I was making almost six figures in my, first year of sobriety at 24 years old and able to pay off all my debt in like 2 years. And I had like a lot of debt, it was not cool. And then like bought a car and like these little moments were like all I share them because they're a lot of what helped me want to give back, you know. And being in that recovery house, like you're there for 13 months. So you got 26 guys living in this place. You'd have some, a third of the house, like 7, 8, 9 guys with less than 90 days of sobriety, coming straight out of prison, out of rehab, off the street, whatever. And then you'd have like a third of the guys with, like 3 to 6 months, and then the rest with like, 6 months to a year. And so the place really ran because of that, not even because of like the staff. Like the staff served a purpose, obviously, and like kept order, but the house ran because of the guys in it. I stayed there because of the dude that was doing the same stuff I was doing, but he was stoked on life. Like he had a job, he had a car, he was going out and like doing stuff that like I wanted that, like little basic shit, but like it was like, okay, if this guy can genuinely have happiness, and this dude was like a gangster, like gang banging in San Diego, like shooting, like going to prison, like, and he's turned his life around. Like I can do that too, and so that was going through that process is what really grew me to like want to do this and do this for other people. And so when I hit that year mark, I graduated the program. At that point, I knew I wanted to work there, and so they hired me, and I moved into. They had 2 houses at the time, one for younger guys, and I ended up going and managing that younger house with like guys 16 to 20 years old, and just started boots on the ground, like literally moved into that house and was living with these dudes. There was 34 of them, and I was working all like I mean around the clock really, but it was my life was just engulfed in it, mm, which is what I needed too. Like for myself, because I had like that pull to go back to what I was doing was always so strong. And this was the first time in my life that like I felt like I belonged and I had purpose, and like I could sit down, and I've always, I guess, kind of been someone to like, sit down and listen to somebody and like let them share whatever's going on with them. And like it's just always kind of happened, like, and there's a lot of us out there like that, and so it was really just like learning to fine tune those talents and skills, and I still do to this day. I do a lot of self-care stuff. I had a couple of rough years. I mean, everybody sits, COVID was brutal. That's
Yeah, it
like
was.
when, oh my
Yeah.
God, that was like the big, detox of my life. And it's when I realized, I needed to step away from the marriage, and just a lot of stuff started to shift and change. Everything changed. But yeah, that was a good thing. But a really hard time. And I kind of like had to do some soul searching again. And I ended up going and checking myself into a place for like 3 weeks and doing like deep dive inner child work. And I do a lot of that kind of stuff, which then I do with my clients and my people I work with. And so
Yeah, so I was gonna say, man, what all do you do as a mentor and life coach, and then also the foundation that you have? What services do you guys have as well? And that was a
yeah.
good segue. That's why I jumped
Yeah,
in.
no, that's perfect. Yeah, so I do basically it's anything from like intervention, which you know what that is, like when someone, family calls me, my son or daughter, whatever, is doing drugs or this or that, or they're struggling with mental health and we don't know what to do. And so I'll either fly in, drive over, whatever it is, if needed, or sometimes it can be done over the phone. But we'll put together a plan of action, what's, kind of step by step, what's next, how to approach the situation. And so I do a lot of that. That always happens, pretty much no matter what, to a degree, like that initial moment. And so that's a big part of it. We do like transport. So we'll go pick somebody up and take them to a program, if it's an adolescent or an adult. So we do those. But the kind of the bread and butter and like the meat and potatoes, if you will, like what I think is the most important thing is the family case management is kind of like the term it falls under, and integration work, which is working with a family I always tell them like my ideal situation would be you dedicate the next 6 months to this process. Not everybody buys it, always wants to do that, but I always tell them this is what's recommended, and here's what we can do month by month, day by day, hour by hour, like whatever somebody needs. But ideally, for what you need, I assess the situation, and then that's the truth is I do an assessment first, and then based off of what that looks like, then from there, it's like, okay, let's put together a plan, because sometimes it's a phone call where it's just like, let's get somebody into a place and that's all that's needed. But a lot of times it's like, working with the son. So, I'll work with guys for whatever reason. Like I work with all ages, but I've always kind of had this like niche for like the adolescent young adult male population, like 14 to 30. Um, has kind of been like a majority of my clients, I would say. And I love that age for a number of reasons. I've learned so much about myself and, taking my own, like you said, my test and making a testimony. And that's what's been, I love that, by the way. I've never heard that before. I love that. I love that.
And then I think with because I know around that age, 14, a lot of stuff goes on, right? A lot of changes go on. You're still what's that, the vortex? I forget what it's called, but it's still
Frontal cortex.
developing.
Yeah. The
Yeah,
frontal.
and
Yep.
then and a lot of things go on, and it sounds like around that time is when you were being tested, right? So
Yeah.
that age bracket makes sense because you have your qualifications in the
Like I
life
said,
in that area. So
this is kind of why
yeah,
this is happening. Yeah. Like I can
yeah,
tell you exactly. Yeah. So for men, it's like the frontal lobe, it fully develops by like 26, that impulse decision making, kind of we act before thinking, and it's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah,
Like I can like literally remember, like, I swear it's like you can start to see like, oh, wow, maybe I should not do that. It's like, oh, instead of like do it and then like, oh man, but yeah, so I love working with that demographic and then with the parents as well. And so we'll meet up with their son in person. If they live locally, we'll meet up a couple times a week, and that can look like an hour. It can be a round of golf. It can be whatever it needs to be. And so I meet with my guys like multiple times a week. My goal is that they end up wanting to meet, as frequent as possible. And then definitely phone calls, text messages, and just like building a relationship. And that's kind of one of the cool things about what I do is it doesn't feel like a job. Like it's not work. It's like more of a calling, a mission, a purpose. Is like I'm kind of get the opportunity to show these guys that come across my path how to have a genuine relationship and what that should look like. A true friendship, a true relationship. And I get to show them what that looks like, and they get to experience that and feel it. So then hopefully, they start to seek that out and move forward in at that vibration and start to attract that rather than, that lower vibration, which, I've been there. I know what that's like to go and, find myself way down, running around in some pretty wild areas going, how did I get here? And, yeah, so a
no,
lot of the
that's
work
cool.
is with the parents, honestly.
So
Is
you have to get the parents buy-in and then have a plan for them with their children. Because a lot of times, man, you're a parent, I'm a parent. Our kids don't. We're parents, but sometimes we can't. You know what I mean?
they're gonna
So
hear
no,
from us sometimes.
exactly.
I always love telling moms and dads, I'm like, remember Charlie Brown? Yeah, it's like when the teacher's talking and all the students are like, all they hear is wah 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 wah. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
you could tell them something, and I can literally say the exact same thing that you just said, and they're gonna be like, "Oh man, that's awesome!" It's like I don't know, for whatever reason they don't hear you, but they're gonna maybe hear it from me. But my goal is to get you guys to come back together, and so I love helping families kind of mend and come back together and just you know. But parents have to see their part in their role too. A lot of the helicopter parenting
yeah.
stuff, a lot of words get thrown out there like codependency real loosely and stuff. 'Cause being a parent, there is a level of codependency that is just gonna be there. If you love your kids, if you're a parent that loves your children, there's gonna be codependency there. And so I don't love when a lot of like my industry folks out there that will like tell parents, "Oh, you're being so codependent," or like getting their ass about that when it's like there's some that's actually okay, but like helping them hold boundaries and hold their kids to a higher standard rather than like what I've noticed a shift big time in like generations is a lot of the parents now like our age and a little bit older, they want to be like friends with their kids, we're like, and that doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. I mean,
No,
it
it does.
can, but it backfires
It
big
doesn't.
time.
Nah, because it's
Yeah.
like I'm not your friend. I'm your parent. Like I always felt as a parent, my job is to give you the tools in life, like to build you up and give you the tools that way when you fly the nest, that you can go out there and be successful. And then also you bring up a good point too. Like very it's a very you have to be very careful when you're dealing with parents and their kids, and how you, like you said, how you speak, and how you it's a very touchy thing, right? Nobody wants to hear as a parent certain things, and especially like you said, hey, this is what you're doing. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of times they're like, here's the problem, like fix the problem. It's like, well, you know, yeah, they've got some stuff going on, but let's see how we got here,
So Chase, thank you for sharing your story, your testimony, being creative. Now, where can people find you, man? Where, like you talked about your journey, this awesome thing you're doing for the listeners. How could they get a hold of you? How could they get a hold of your organization? Shameless
Yeah.
promotion time.
Okay. Yeah. So we have a website, austinintegrationcoaching.com. So just literally Austin, the city, integration coaching, all one word.com. On there, you will find me and everything you need to know. Number, contact, all that is on there. Yeah.
And then my last question, circling back to music. What does music mean to Chase Thayer?
Man, I mean, music is life. Music is medicine. I want to say that. Like she said, I want to steal that one. But I mean, music is because like I still listen to like, some of the stuff I listened to back in the day, but there's a lot of stuff that I used to listen to that I don't listen to anymore.
Yeah.
I've tried to, and I'm like, ooh, I don't want that in my life. I don't need that energy, that feeling. It's interesting because I never thought that would happen. Honestly, I never thought that would happen. No, music is everything. Like it's a part of every day with me and my kids and life and everything. So thanks for having me, man.
Nah, no problem, man. And you know what? You made me think of something too. So, we're around the same era. Hey, I was up there in 99, back that ass up. But then when it comes on now with my teenage daughter, it's like, ooh, no.
No,
And
don't
then
you do that.
Something one of my friends said a long time ago, and I didn't really get it until I got older, is the philosophy of you are who you surround yourself with and what you take in. And we outgrow certain things, right? And it's like you said with certain music, it's like, nah, that was when I was a rebel, when I was young, but now it's like, nah, that ain't it. But yeah, man, hey, and ladies and gentlemen, man, you've heard an awesome story from Chase, and thank you for what you're doing, man. Like I said, man, for me, turn that test into a testimony, and you are living and breathing your work and what you do. So again, ladies and gentlemen, another great episode with myself, Marquivas, and Chase here on Deeper Than Music. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Amen.